All right, hello people. So, today we're gonna talk about what is Nix and what is NixOS, what's the difference, and maybe I should have written Nix 3 times actually because, well, I'll get to that. But before we come to my content, I want a little bit of information about you as well. So, I want to see like a bit of raise of hands. My question would be, how many PCs do you manage? So by manage, I mean you install applications, you configure them, you maintain them. It can be your own PCs for work. It can be your families, your colleagues. So let's raise our hands who manages at least 2. All right, I see. Relevant topic then. All right, now let's raise the hands who has at least 3. All right, now we're gonna skip 4 and go with 5. Okay, 10. Oh, wow. Okay, pretty good. All right, so this is gonna be interesting for you then. So let's start with a bit of introduction. So my name is Mika, and I am, well, you saw the job title, but I'm an engineering leader at Bonial. So in my day job, I lead a team, and I am building some AI projects, stuff like this, software engineering. But I guess in the evening and at night, I am just curious technology lover and Linux nerd most of the time. And yeah, just like we were discussing right now about this question, I had the same problem, right? So I have these machines and I have my work laptop, I have this laptop over here, I have a desktop, I have a tiny server, Steam Deck, and more and more and more. But when I connect to them, they're all different. And this was so frustrating for me because I actually like when things are kind of uniform, at least have the same applications in the terminal, regular GUI applications as well, maybe. But yeah, like I want the things to be that way. And I also want them to look pretty uniform. So I also want the configuration to be synced as well. So it's not like, oh yeah, like if you just want the same list, why don't you dump a list of applications you install with Pacman and then you install it on your other machine, homebrew another machine. Not fun because there's also configuration files. There's also sometimes some system settings I want to adjust. Sometimes they're spread across the entire system. You don't know where they are. And I wanted to have a solution. So that's where Nix comes in. So first of all, why did I say there should have probably been the word Nix 3 times? So NixOS is a Linux distribution based on Nix Package Manager. In turn, the Nix Package Manager builds the system, builds its state based on the Nix expression language. So now you see why there is actually 3 Nixes. So yeah, just like Arch, for example, is based around Pacman, the main thing about NixOS is that it uses Nix Package Manager. And basically the whole cool part is the package manager and the language. NixOS basically the different, so you can actually run Nix Package Manager on any distribution. You don't have to use NixOS. But the cool part is that NixOS also basically gets into things like kernel, system configuration, hardware, things like that. So the whole concept is that your files are stored in the store. So instead of like regular distributions do, and sometimes it's a bit of a Achilles heel of NixOS, instead of placing them in different regular file system hierarchy, it actually puts everything into an immutable Nix store. We can see where it is. There's a path. I'll show you a little bit more about how it's stored and where it goes. And then instead of like you using them directly, they are symlinked into the system path. So for example, if it's user configuration, it gets to your home directory, user.config. If it's a system configuration, it ends up in etc or somewhere else. Same with binaries, they also just get symlinked to a specific place which you then can access them from. And that also gives us a little bit of advantage. So let's get to the advantages and features. That they are, yeah, I should start probably from the first one. Yeah, so key features. The first one is that it's pretty easy to reproduce any setup with NixOS. All you have to do is to write a configuration once, and then no matter what happens to your system, or if you want to create another system somewhere else, let's say you're buying a new laptop and you're like, yeah, but I also wanted maybe different form factor to carry around with me because maybe this one I have is too big, I want a smaller one, but I wanted to have the same things. So it's easy to copy things from one place to another. What I like is what I mentioned, the clarity and consistency of the definition. It's all in the same place, and it's all in the same file. Basically, it's a bit more complicated when I'll show you the code, at least in my case. But it's all there, and you don't have to think, how do I do this? Where do I go? Oh, it's this path. Okay, I go here. Oh, it's this package manager. Oh, it's a Flatpak application. I can only install it with Flatpak. Let's go Flatpak. No, it's boring, complicated, and takes too much mental energy. So that's the benefit. And another thing is pretty cool thing as well. So you can obviously restore the system from your configuration, because you can just, yeah, I messed it up, I have the file saved somewhere else, I bring it back again and try again, but also NixOS stores the generations of your system. So each time you change the configuration and run a specific command, it just puts another save point, so to say, in your bootloader, and you can easily just roll back, oh, I did this change on Monday, so maybe this one from Sunday will still work. And you go and it works. It's really like that, because it removes the packages that you don't need to think about. And the last one, a bit of a good thing and a little bit of a bad thing, what I was getting when I was talking about the store, isolation and immutability. So the packages, they live in their own world. So it's containers without the containers. That's the fun part about it. They are configured independently. One package cannot change another all of a sudden. And you also cannot do that, unfortunately. You can only do that by changing the configuration and running the command. So yeah, it causes its own problems, which I get to. But it's pretty fun because it's actually makes the system more secure, I would say, because if you install an application that wants to spy on some other application, it's not gonna intrude all of a sudden without you knowing much. So, but the main good point is that it's code. And here is where I go to the demo part. So, because it's code, you also have the possibility to maintain it on GitHub and see basically the version history and everything, all your changes, now maintainable. You don't need to think about where this file goes, all there. And it also, for example, allows you to write conditionals in your configuration. Like I said, imagine you have 5 different machines, each one slightly different. Maybe one of them you want to run some AI stuff, so you need a graphics card. Okay, we put graphics card support in that thing under an if condition if it's running on this machine. If it's not, no. So it's just like infrastructure as a code, but now imagine that your laptop is a code, basically. All this state of your system is. So now a bit of a fun part, I hope. So first off, yeah, this is a bit wiki. Okay. So when you would get your configuration file, it would look something like this. I wonder if the font is too big or is it not big enough? Let me actually make it a bit smaller. So usually what you start with, it's already the configuration I had at some point and changed it a little bit. That's a fun name of my home PC. I name my devices after dragons. So that's why I have this, it's Irish. I cannot read it, so I can type it. Okay, so you can see that it has like this pretty regular coding stuff. That's functional programming though. I'm not an expert on functional programming. I am still learning, and I literally learned Nix like 10 months ago. So I'm still figuring out some things, but I'm really excited about it. So this is why I'm showing it. So you can see it does all this regular stuff you have in your code. Import, there you go. Import more configuration files. So you start with one file, but you don't need to stay with it. You can split it into multiple files. You can see here on the side that I have pretty extensive configuration with a lot of files for different applications, for different use cases, for different machines. I still didn't put the fifth one there. That's why you don't see it. But basically, that's the thing. And again, the things you can configure here are, you can see the host name, right? Okay, easy enough. Here is some configuration for your Bluetooth hardware. Here, this is for like a gamepad thing. You set your time zone, your everything you can set here. And then when it gets to applications, this is like user-specific stuff. Again, we type this thing, environment system packages, and we just put the list of everything we want to install. So the good thing is that Nix repository is pretty big. It has a lot of applications there. Sometimes they don't, but this is addressable. This is something I will talk in like a few moments. Again, if we want to see like an if condition, for example, I think I have it. Let me scroll down a little bit. Oh yeah, I did some things here. So I needed to install a Ocular. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar. It's part of KDE. Allows you to view PDF files to show my presentation. But I don't want it on macOS, right? I want it on Linux, or I don't want it on every PC, so I would separate it. But in this case specifically, I separated it on platform basis. So that's the fun part, right? It's pretty extensible, variables, everything, it's all there. Now let's get back to the presentation a little bit. Next thing, like I thought this is important to bring up because whenever you start learning NixOS, you're gonna run into this question. And it took me a while to understand what a flake is. Like basically some people have their configuration as a configuration file, some have them as flakes. What is flakes? Again, it's very like, see Nix, so it's snow, so we're going with a flake. It's it doesn't explain what it actually is about, so it might get confusing. But the main important point about this is the way the so the inputs, the package sources are defined. So if you're using the configuration, now I go back to my code again, and here I have some, this doesn't work, command stuff. Okay, so if we're using the configuration files, we would basically need to define the package sources. Here I highlighted classic configuration file commands. When you add like a channel for where you're getting your packages from, you have to add it manually on the running system. So it's a bit like, yeah, but if I have 5 PCs, right, and I want this specific package source, what, am I gonna type this command 5 times again? That's where the flakes come in. Because with flakes, what they did is, let's put them into configuration as well. Like, why are we not doing this, right? So if we go here to flakes, here you see there are multiple inputs. And like, that's where, or I'm gonna get to the, what if you don't have a package for that in the repository? Here you can see Zen browser, for example, line 19. It's not available in the regular Nix packages repository. I checked it last week, so I don't think it's still there. But you can install it separately by adding this as an input. So flakes, if you define your configuration as a flake and you make like a package available through it, I think you can also share it pretty easily. But that's something a bit beyond of my knowledge. So far, I didn't configure any packages myself. I'm only running my systems using it. So maybe there are more to this. Okay, so now let me look at what else can I show you. Okay, so if we something that I can show as well here is the store, right? So I mentioned that the store is a very special location in your system, right? So we go cd, not like this, Nix store. And that's actually where it stores everything. So if we're gonna type right now, which application? Oh, we mentioned Ocular. Let's get to the Ocular again. Oh, there you see it. So it installs it into this location, so it's safe. Didn't get into your executables necessarily and can be easily removed if the generation doesn't need it. Now, if we go something a bit more different, I wonder if that will... Oh yeah, that is a bad idea. Let me think. I have this one. No, of course. When it generates, I cannot show you, I can't remember the name, but basically when it generates a configuration for the application separately, it will also live in its store. There will be a folder with the name of what configuration is this from. Unfortunately, you see, I chose very bad examples, so I couldn't find it. Anyway, I hope you can trust me, but I will show you a little bit from a different angle then. Now, for example, if we go to our home directory, right, and we type, so this is a command for me that will put it out like this, a detailed list of the files. And you can see that ZSRC, for example, the configuration for ZSH, it's actually a link to somewhere in the store. So it's not a real file. So it does create a bit of a tricky situation that if you want to change it manually all of a sudden and you like want to add this one tiny line, you have to go and add it to your configuration and build the configuration again. Yeah, so but there are some workarounds, but you just have to remember that your files are now static, immutable. You cannot change them without, let's say, the safe process of generating them. And wait, I think now we can get back here. What's next? Okay. So you saw already, I mentioned that there is also something I run on macOS. So that's another fun part, is that it exists beyond Linux. And what helps is pretty generic package managers. They follow the same approach. They use NixStore. They work the same way. They have a configuration. You have to run a build command to build it, and then it builds, then it changes everything, creates a generation, and so on and so on. But they allow you to do different things. So one of them is Darwin Nix. So basically, if you're using macOS and you want to try out Nix as a package manager, that will be where you can go. It doesn't allow for, let's say, detailed system configuration, unfortunately. I read it, they sometimes introduce a feature, then it works, then Apple releases an update and it doesn't work anymore, or it wipes the configuration and applies its own anyway. So, but at least installing applications, managing configuration and so on is pretty good. So that's what I use it for. Another pretty cool thing is Home Manager. So this is a pretty, I don't know if you're using it for yourself, not for a server, if you're using it on a desktop, you're pretty much gonna be running Home Manager as your second package manager for the system. What it does is that it manages the applications and configurations on the user level. So it's pretty safe, right? So you can allow your users to install everything you want, but only in the scope of your user, and it will not break the main system because it's all contained. So you can give a little bit of freedom, but also not so much. And it allows for more detailed configuration of some tools. For example, ZSH I configured there specifically because it has much more configuration options to make it more custom. And yeah, it also has multiple architectures like ARM64. I want to try it out, but I don't have a Raspberry Pi yet. That will be 7. That will be too much, right? And also a fun thing I found just as I was preparing this talk, and I didn't research it. I found it accidentally. I have this ebook that runs on Android, and I was just going through the packages, and I saw this, Nix Android. I have no idea what you can do with it. Why would you have it? Feel free to try out and tell me later. I would like to know. Maybe someday I will also try it out myself. Okay, so if we are talking about how it looks in our configuration again, um, so it's pretty cool because with Flakes, it also all goes into the same file. So usually, if you run a configuration file setup, it will be multiple files for every package repository. There's gonna be, every package manager, there's gonna be its own configuration file. Home manager.nix, configuration.nix for the system, so on. But with Flakes, it's all super fun. I have this one file here, and everything is defined in there. You can see inputs for macOS start. Very cool. Yeah, so this is configuration for the devices that use NixOS as the operating system. So it's these ones. Then there is this one for Darwin Nix. Same file. So I can pretty much reuse most of the stuff here. This one is a work machine, so it's a bit special. This one is a bit better because it's more generic. And then for the home manager, again, just another set in the configuration. Here it goes. This one also has the macOS devices because, like I said, Home Manager pretty much works on both platforms. So you can also set up things on, if you don't want to, let's say, if you don't want to damage your system, because Darwin Nix does a lot of changes to the system running to the macOS, creates extra users, set up partitions in its own way, might mess up some systems if there is some, Apple changes something, you know. You can always go with Home Manager because it feels like it's always super safe. But yeah, I didn't try. I wanted to break things. Okay, so, but now let's see. I just want to look at the time and think what I can talk about next. Okay, and then let me get back a little bit. I'm going a bit faster than I thought I would. I just want to show a few things. So this is what I said. So I cannot show you a boot menu because I would have to reboot the device and then I would have to set up everything again. But this is a screenshot of how the generations would look like. So every time you run a command, which is in my case, I can even start it, but I'm not sure it will finish. It will be NixOS rebuild switch. NixOS rebuild switch. Right. It will create a new generation, so my bootloader will have, right now it has two, so that will be third configuration, and they will be displayed like this. So the version doesn't tell you much, right? But what tells you much is the date. So you know, oh, I built it on this date, it broke. Before that, it didn't. Very good and very useful if you are playing around with your system. Another thing that I can show you is this one. So this is a guide, this is a manual for the home manager. This is specifically this part, the configuration options. You can configure quite a lot of packages here. Let me go to something simple. Oh, talking about ZSH. It has to be. Yeah. So you can configure a lot of stuff about it. Enable completion, integrations, plugins, and like different plugin managers. You can just put a use that enable, and it just enables it. You don't have to think about what it actually does in the background if you want to try something out. So this is pretty fun. Another thing I really like is the fact that I don't know how many of you like just wake up one day, read about some new tools, and they're like, oh, I never heard about that one, I want to try it out. And then you're like, how do I install it on my system? And how do I install it just to try it out? The thing you do with Nix is very simple. You just type this command. I was trying some tools a bit last time, but we can do something simple. I don't have Firefox. I don't know, maybe it will work. So you just type this command, it installs Firefox for you, and then when the command is done, you just exit this shell and Firefox is gone from your system again. You don't have it anymore. So it's not gonna damage, change something. I don't think Firefox does, but something else might, so that's the case, right? So, okay, so the internet is still a bit suffering. That's okay. Let's get to the final parts of the presentations. So now basically how should you decide if this system is for you or not? So first of all, if you have, like question I was asking in the beginning, if you start having multiple machines, 2 and more, you might run into the problem like, I forgot to install this thing, I forgot to put this configuration. That's the point where having something like this or other solution to maintain your configuration, installation, system state basically can work. NixOS does it very well because, again, it's code and you don't need to think much. So, but yeah. Another fun use case that I have a Steam Deck, and I don't know if any of you have it, but SteamOS also has its own definition of immutability. If you start installing applications, it kind of wipes your state on the next update and puts the system state that was there. But for example, you can use Home Manager on a Steam Deck and it will work fine. And all your stuff will be there, at least on the user level. But system, whatever it does, yeah, let it do whatever it does. And another use case, like I mentioned, if you are a person like me who's constantly experimenting with the new big thing, like, I don't know, window managers or something like this, you want to be very careful because at some point you might change a configuration, install new application, and things start falling apart. NixOS takes care of that. Let it break. You just, as I showed you, pick the correct boot option, and you just, I wanted to do it fast, but I didn't. Just pick the correct boot option, let it work, and it runs. Okay. Now, the cases where you might not want to use it, first of all, very big disclaimer, this is a Linux system and it might be not suitable for everyone. Obviously, if you want regular tools like Photoshop or other things, bad idea, definitely. But also, you have to have like this tinkerer mindset and be able to sit down and figure out things. So if you need it tomorrow, maybe it's not a good idea to try out NixOS. If your machine is critical, you should not experiment on it, especially with system as NixOS, because the configuration is a bit sparse. And sometimes it's hard to find things. Sometimes things break because it's in very active development. Proprietary drivers also regular problem, again, pretty much on most Linux distributions. A few exceptions. And another unfortunate thing I noticed, as I said, there's some criticism about Nix ignoring the file system hierarchy standard. It creates its own problems because some things will not be where they should be. They are in Nix store. They are not at bin/something. Instead, they are in Nix store. And if there is a dependency that you have that defines this complete path that it should be there and it's not there, that thing is not gonna work. I noticed some problems with Python, with some Node.js packages, they also refuse to build. There are workarounds, but coming to the point, don't switch on it if you need it urgently. You will figure it out eventually. The point is that eventually might be different depending on a problem, because it's still new, still running, still in active development, and things might happen. But what I want to say, it's a fun journey because you're working with a system that doesn't look like anything else on the market, that works differently, that puts things in a new way and tries to look at them from functional programming perspective, where things are immutable and only change when you actually need them to change. And that's the way it does. So, right now, we are going to, oh, that's a wrong button. We're going to the question time. So if you have any questions, you want me to show something in Nix language, or you want to ask me if does this possible on this system, now is your chance.
Hello, thanks for the talk. It was super interesting. I've got a question regarding getting to know NixOS as a beginner or also configuration. So, are there maybe some things like public templates or something like that? Just think of Docker containers, for example. Usually, you can maybe take a container like a Maven container, and then it's already pre-installed and takes care, and you can inherit from it, something like that. Is there something like that existing in the community, or is there a system built that you can like get inspired by other people from the community?
Yeah, so there are multiple. Let me think. So I think if you go to official documentation, they have several links to like example configurations. Those configurations range from pretty basic ones to something more mid-level complicated like mine, with a lot of files and a lot of conditions. And then there's like crazy super detailed stuff that I didn't understand. Yeah, so there are examples in the configuration. As to how to learn it, and this is where my talk finally connects to AI. I used a lot of AI tools to figure out how something works, how to configure something. So it actually was quite useful, surprisingly, and much easier than actually going through the configuration files and all the manuals themselves, because I showed you this page here, which is like all the tools in Home Manager and how to configure them. Like, it's insanely long document. I'm scrolling it and you can hopefully see this tiny bar. It's never gonna end. I read through it, but it took several days. Like, I'm sorry, it's discouraging a little bit, but again, that's what AI is for, right? You just tell it, I need this tool, how do I configure it? And it explains to you, and you try it out, and it actually helps. I tried switching to NixOS like pretty long time ago, like 6 or 7 years ago, but then the documentation was bad, and it was even harder because you had to literally read everything to understand things. Nowadays, with the AI tools, you can pick it up much faster, and the community is pretty good. Like, they are very active with answering questions and talking about things. I have some links in the end, which I hope might be helpful. There is also, let's say, I want to figure out if this tool is there. There are also pretty good, I don't know how to call it, search tool that you can search the specific packages that you want, specific configuration options. And again, here you have it, I have it open for Firefox, and you can see like, okay, a package is Firefox. So if we want to install it with the command I showed before, which was like, where is it? Here, for example, but this is Home Manager, doesn't matter. Home packages, list of packages, right? Oui. So we can install it like this, or you can also use the different way of defining it, which is like we use this programs.firefox.enable, we put it to true, and then there are everything you can define about it, policies, preferences, all that stuff you can do. So this is also a helpful tool. I think I have the link to it in the, I prepared a little link tree for this talk. It also has the link to my GitHub, so maybe that can also serve as an inspiration. Okay, anything else? All right. So if there's no more question, now I know it might, as I said, it might sound a bit overwhelming, but it has been a very fun 10 months of exploring this topic for me. And I do hope I did inspire you to get on this journey and start with NixOS. So as I said, there is a little link tree with the links that you can use. It has my configuration, it has link to main Nix page, and it has links to all the package managers that I mentioned. And thank you for your attention.